Tonight, a family says they are glad that their daughter's remains have been identified, and a suspect in her death is already behind bars, but they say they are not going to stop until he is formally convicted of this crime.
Today, Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott identified remains along with the coroner of Adriana Laster, a woman who disappeared 12 years ago.
Now, they also announced an arrest in her death. Again, that man, one that is no stranger to News 19 viewers. Walker Lawson has been following this story all day and joins us now live with the latest from Elgin, which is where Adriana was found. Walker.
Good evening, Andrea and Darcy. As you guys mentioned, Adriana Laster went missing about 12 years ago, and her family in the town of Elgin have not given up. They've continued to look for her. Posters have remained up across the town. The town of Elgin's continued the investigation, but of course, her remains were found on January 12th at a sand pit in Richland County. It sits very close to the Kershaw-Richland border, and I want to say it's give or take about 9 minutes from where she lived on Kelly Street. Now, those remains were found by someone that was digging through, and Rutherford, Nadia Rutherford said earlier today that the grave was dug before a mining company took over in 2018. So Richland County's been out there trying to get the rest of her remains. They said they're still searching through all of the sand to try to put her together as much as possible. Sheriff Leon Lott spoke earlier today at the press conference. This is what he had to say.
Two different things: closure for the family. The coroner's talked with Adriana's family and has given them as much information as she has. And Freddie Grant knows that we're coming for him and going to have another warrant served on him. So a monster continues to haunt this community. And when I say this community, Gabby's death just didn't touch those here in Columbia, in Northeast Columbia. It was throughout the state, throughout this nation. And Adriana's case was the same way.
Now, Adriana lived with Freddie Grant when she disappeared. They lived on Kelly Street together. Now, coming up tonight at 6, we're going to hear from Adriana's family, who spoke with us over Zoom. We're also going to hear from the mayor, who says this brings some form of closure to the town, but they will keep fighting for this family to get justice. Reporting in Elgin, Walker Lawson, News 19 WLTX.
Walker, I know you're in Elgin, where she was from, and I know that her family continued to look for her. News 19 was at a ceremony that they had just a couple of years ago, reminding everybody that she was missing, right?
That's correct. I came out here about a year and a half ago. It was on her birthday. Sergeant Michelle was the one that organized the event. They had a candlelight vigil for her, put many of images up of her behind me right here. And it was really to make sure that her name and her face was never forgotten. And the town says they will continue to make sure that her name and her face, again, are never forgotten in this community.
Walker, a lot of people are new to this story. You know, we've got people new to our community. Can you draw the parallel between this disappearance and Gabby's disappearance several years ago as well?
Yeah, so Freddie Grant, and I'm not too familiar with Gabrielle's case, but I know that Freddie Grant and Adriana, again, were living together. Now, the years kind of all come together for when they crossed over and overlapped. But again, it was a huge impact. A lot of people knew the name Freddie Grant and Adriana as well as Gabrielle. So a lot of parallels here, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that at 6 as well.
All right, Walker, thank you so much. And if we could go back to those pictures of Gabby for just a moment. Gabby Swainson, of course, was a 17-year-old who was kidnapped from her home here in Richland County. There was an exhaustive search for her. Her body was missing for more than a year, but her family, her loved ones continued to look, and Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott vowed to get justice in the case. And then Freddie Grant was finally charged. They had a plea deal. He led investigators to her body, and he is serving now time and was convicted of her murder. He was living with, as Walker Walker said at the time of her disappearance with Adriana. So Richland County Sheriff said that they went to the jail. They tried to talk to Freddie Grant again about Adriana and the remains being found. He declined to comment, but Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott saying there will be more charges for Freddie Grant, who is already behind bars. But for this entire community, you know, we all remember Gabby Swainson. We all hurt when she was missing. Even Darcy and I as journalists, it's one of those cases I will never remember. She played in the band.
Yeah, you'll never forget this case.
She had so many people who loved her. So Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott saying at the press conference that he spoke to her mom today and made sure that he let her know first what had happened.
Of course, we're going to continue to follow this